when I improve something in my personal life, my business improves and vice versa. I think that more often than not, driven men will spend more time in the business trying to improve it because they can see the measurable outcomes of their work. There's very specific KPIs in the professional world. There's not always such specific KPIs in the personal world. A lot of times the validating outside world elevates the professional accomplishments and not so much the personal accomplishments. But I also think there's this underlying issue that a lot of men deal with, which is they're not sure how to actually rectify the personal challenges. When we don't understand how to deal with particularly the emotional negativity that happens to us or through us, we don't then understand how to communicate it. And so when we don't know how to communicate it, we just choose not to work on it or don't work on it. Men of greatness, rise and stand tall. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Greatness. It's been a bit since I have done a guest episode. I've been running a lot of solo episodes. I've been talking a lot about just men of greatness and pursuing that level of elite entrepreneur without destroying your faith or your family. Had a lot of fun doing that, and I've really been turning down a lot of requests to do guest conversations. It just felt like I was just in a groove and wanted to keep it that way. And then just so happened that I was cold calling or cold LinkedIn DMing some people on LinkedIn. And specifically, I was looking to align with some EOS implementers. That is the Entrepreneur's Operating System, made very famous by the book Traction that Gino Wickman wrote. And so I was working through having conversations with quite a few different implementers. And I came across this gentleman that if you're watching, you're looking at right now. His name is Mike Kotsis. And what started off as, I felt like, a pretty good discussion around business and the alignment with what he has been doing for many, many years with EOS implementation and what we're doing with SOS, our sales operating system, turned into a much more gratifying conversation, at least for me, as we started digging into what Mike really loves. And not to say he doesn't love EOS, but I learned very quickly how much he loves his family and is committed to leading his family well, how much he loves Jesus, which is something that I love to talk about all the time. And so we got going there. And then we started to open up the door to talk about this thing he does around freedom coaching that I'm so excited to dig into today because there's some alignment between what I do on the personal development side and what he does. And I just felt like it would be such a fruitful conversation. Anyway, that's a long introduction to say that Mike didn't reach out to me. I did pursue him, but I just felt like this was a great conversation. So Mike, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast today. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the Lord does.
You're welcome, and thank you for that introduction. And I'm excited to be here, excited to explore and see what flows through both you and I today.
Yeah, no, so fun, so fun. Okay, so as much as I would love, because I think that there is probably a lot of value for the entrepreneurs that are listening to hear you talk about EOS and what you've been doing for businesses for many, many years, and maybe we'll get into that at times, but what I think was so fascinating for me was how much of your passion aligned with my passion around equipping high achieving men to be far more than just a successful business leader. And it sounded like that was birthed out of your own desire to do that. And so let me just open up Pandora's box in this way. Was there a moment in time when you transitioned from head down, build the business, which was a good and wise thing to do, and started to transition into I think I need to do more than just build business. I need to invest in my family and then ultimately, or get to a place where then I can invest into other men?
Yeah, a great question. There, as far as a single moment, I don't know that there was a single moment with that, but what I do recall is that over my journey, that Jill, who's my girlfriend and my bride of 18 years, that we've co-created our relationship together. Like we dream together. You know, we envision where we're going together. So we just had this cultivated this habit of doing this together, essentially by using some of the EOS tools in our family life early on in our marriage. And we were just getting in a great communication rhythm with each other. I mean, we would go away for, uh, in the business world, they call it quarterly plannings, right? But us, it's like we'd have quarterly date weekends in a different way and go explore different parts of the town. And when we had kids, we started bringing them everything we did and we're learning for ourselves. We just included them as part of it. So we just included. So it was always that conversation with us in that way. And so everything we did was an extension with each other and our children. And so
Okay, okay,
eventually,
okay. Wait.
yeah.
I said I was not gonna that we were probably not gonna talk much about EOS, but you just planted it so well. Okay, so do you feel like it was your experience, education, and investment into EOS that helped you to bring that into your marriage, or did you learn that somewhere else and then just saw alignment between those two things before you got married?
Well, it's funny. So we didn't use EOS at the beginning of our marriage, and so we both worked in our family business. Like we were both in my family business. We worked together, food service distribution. So we learned how to work with family and non-family and each other, and you know how to turn it off when you get home. I wasn't so good at that. Um, by the way. And what happened was is that when I eventually turned the reins of the running the business over to my cousin, who's continuing to run it today. This was over 14 years ago. I began researching EOS as a path for me to serve in more deeply, profoundly with other family and non-family businesses, and I discovered the family plan VTO in that research. And so it's the family version of it, and I'm like,
Did
wow,
you
this
come
is
up with
cool.
that?
No, I didn't come up with it. Gino came up with it. It's not something that EOS Worldwide does, but you know, makes it accessible. I mean, the ideas that Gino had come up with over time, and so you know, I said this would be great. Like I remember doing a life plan paper in college, and I pulled it back out and I saw it, and it was 10 pages, but most of it had come true and I hadn't read it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Well, Jill and I had never done that. And we're not about to write a 10-page paper. So I'm like, a 2-page template that we can just agree on and get on the same page with. Boom. Like we started doing that and use that to help decide to pursue the path of being an EOS implementer 14 years ago and kept using that in our lives for several years beyond.
Wow. Okay, so can you then explain, because I'm taking for granted the fact that probably a lot of people don't even know what we're talking about. So can you just give a quick then background on EOS? Again, we weren't going to go here this quickly, but I guess we are. And then the VTO, because I think that is helpful, because I'm sure there's some familiarity with the entrepreneur, with the business owner, clearly around a vision for business, around creating strategic plan, leaning into long-term goals, but you can connect that better. And I think EOS does a phenomenal job of that anyway. And then I'm going to love listening to you talk about how then that translates into the family VTO. So why don't
Yeah,
you share a
yeah,
little bit of that?
absolutely. So EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system, and it's a methodology. It's a system of tools. It's a complete system that helps leadership teams of entrepreneurial organizations to do three things. We call them vision, traction, and healthy. So vision, getting the leadership on the same page, getting the direction of the company going in the same direction with everybody's energy moving that way. Traction, helping them to create more accountability and discipline to achieve the vision, and just becoming a more healthy, united front as a team. And so as they go to the leadership team, ultimately everybody else in the organization gets rowing in that same direction. The the VTO is the vision and plan document. It's a 2-page, simplified terms, it's 2-page strategic planning. You get clear on the big picture vision, your core values, all the way through your 3-year picture. The backside is about your 1-year plan, quarterly rocks and issues and opportunities that come up. And so that when I say VTO, I'm talking about for so a business plan. We had a different version of that for our family, and we use that in our lives to converge around our core values, our shared passions, our lifetime wish list, what we wanted our lives to look like in 3 years, what was important this year. Helped us to confront and have some conversations, in a place and time where, whenever we had an idea and one of us would bring it up, the other's not in the same energy or, maybe tired or not wanting to hear it. So you don't make good decisions in that way. And so for us, it just helped just to get in a rhythm of and better communication.
Yeah, man. I just had, so I have one employee that works for me full time. She was just here right before recording of this podcast, and we were talking about common friend, mutual friends that we that have stepped into a relationship. They bought a home together. They bought vehicles together. One of the two members of the couple has a child with a previous relationship, so that's there. So families there, but they're not married, which I always advise against. Number one, doing all those things before marriage. The other thing though is they don't really have a plan. They didn't really have a plan. Uh, I think both assumed and hoped that they were going to get married one day, but they went and did all these, grown up, and these are adults, but they went and did all these grown up responsible things before they put the plan in the place and made the commitment, to move forward full time. And so I think that whether that's the story, which is maybe an extreme on one end, or it's just simply we get married and we start existing together, I think that that's a challenge, right? That a lot of couples face. And I'm sure that you find, which has got to be one area of what you're speaking into with other men. But I think that that's just a common challenge, right? That we're seeing where people kind of step into something and then just hope its way into existence, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's, sometimes stepping into it, a bit blindly, right?
Right.
And so while there's value in planning, you can take it too far, right? And you can make it all about the planning, and it can be all about my plan or our plan, um, without allowing God to unfold the journey in front of us. And so that's where both Jill and I had a lot of, I guess you could call it type A personalities. We like to take the reins and just really just be very intentional about designing our life. But you can take a good thing too far, and that's part of what we realized later in that journey, that it became more about the plan and the anticipated design of what we wanted, opposed to relating to what was unfolding in front of us.
Good. And so where in that, just as we're talking about planning, it could be business, could be relationship. You brought God into the conversation. We've had this conversation to some degree already, but where do you see people typically err in missing on bringing God into that conversation, and where do you feel like it's best? And I understand we're probably going to agree that it's best to bring God into every moment of every conversation, but like, where do you see those natural places that maybe somebody is missing that they should be bringing to the Lord into the conversation?
I'll speak from my experience for me, where being a man of faith, I had practiced in uh, my relationship with God and developed that over the years. And what I found is that, while I had strong belief that, when I got into the business and creating my clients and helping my teams move forward, I have my plan that I wanted to work out. And so when I got so fixated and rigid and trying to will it to happen and not leave space for the unknown, and I was driving going forward. So almost like tunnel vision, like this way, it's like I know I can do this. and not leaving that space just to say, I can have an intention and now yield with the unfolding in front of me versus before I would will it. And back in my family business days when I was running our family business, it was so much more my intention and my plan. It was well intended to help our family and to help our family business, but I got myself very sick. I had an autoimmune condition that surfaced very early on in that journey. It was very scary. I nearly lost my life, and it was a wake up call for me that I was gripping. If you're not seeing this, I'm squeezing my fist together. That I was gripping onto the way I thought it should be for everything to work out to be okay. And even if it was well intended, I was hurting myself because I was trying to create the plan, not pray and yield and take steps in that direction and be okay with what is in front of me.
Yeah, man, it resonates so much with me. I always say that one of my greatest gifts is also one of my greatest curses. And it's that God has wired me to be very strategic in my thinking, to be very determined and internally motivated in my desire to achieve and excel. And so it's a blessing. I mean, it's helped me to build my business and my life and clients, but at the same time, it's caused me at times to be so self-reliant. Even I'm not trying to leave God out of the conversation. It just kind of by nature happens. And then I get into these difficult moments, seasons, and I'm going to the Lord and I'm saying, but Lord, you equipped me this way. You're the one that gave me these things. And yet they're hurting me at times. Like I don't want to do away with them. I love them and they're huge gifts, but also they can cause me to leave God out of the conversation if I'm not careful. I get backed into a corner. I'm like, oh, I can build my way out of this instead of stopping, breathing, and praying and allowing the Lord to speak through me. So when as you've been also working with men in this freedom coaching arena, and that's got to be a big part of it. Like you've got to get these guys into, I would assume you're getting these guys into a much different headspace. So it's not just all about build, 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 march forward. And so how do you address that man, maybe that you have met in the business world that has been successful, and you start introducing this idea, or maybe they've communicated to you like, man, there's got to be something more here, or I'm overburdened and I need more. Like, how do you begin to introduce that idea that they need to start leaving space for other things?
Well, it depends what their experience is. Sometimes, they're getting good business results, but their marriage isn't as strong as they'd like it to be. Or there's some area in their life where their relationships aren't as strong. The biggest the biggest sign that comes out typically is that there's often a lot of planning, especially in the business world, and whether it's the vision plan or just dialing in their schedules, and either they don't have enough time, or the time that they do have, they find and are called to the carpet on, usually by their spouse or their family, that they're not present. They're physically here, but their mind is somewhere else. Why can I say this? Because this is my experience. For me, first, is that I was really good at planning weekly, quarterly, monthly, annually, and just getting very intentional at that time, but I wasn't present. My mind would be anticipating the front, or just it'd be out in the past working through stuff. And that took me out of the game. And if I'm not present, what do I have? This is all we have in this present moment. And if I'm stressed or gone, like right here, and I continually do that over time, you know, I, re- I'm creating no space for myself. And so the journey that I've been on and that I work with my clients in one-on-one freedom coaching is really dropping from our head into our heart and aligning harmony, head and heart, as we're leading in our business and in our family lives.
And so for that man that is your ideal client, they're just sitting in that. Is that typically a conversation that you start or that you provoke? Or is it something that they're coming to you and saying, "Man, I've had enough," or I don't know, my wife says I'm here, but I'm never here. Like what is the beginnings of that relationship and that conversation like for you normally?
Yeah, normally it's life feels not as smooth and effortless as they imagine it could be. There's a component, and it doesn't matter what component it is. Typically, it most commonly it's on the business side that somebody will come. It's like something's not working as well in their business, or they're frustrated, and it doesn't. They're they have a frustration of something not going well, and it's just usually one piece. But as we slow down and unpack and take a look at their whole life, their relationships, their health, their fitness, their faith, their contribution that they're making in the world. And we take a look at that, something else inevitably gets unpacked. It's like, oh yeah, I really wish I would stop doing that. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I really, taking a drink a day, it's not, I know I shouldn't be doing that right now. And yet I don't know why I do it. And there's conversations that in our sacred space that anything comes up, we bring in all aspects of life into this because every aspect impacts every other aspect of life. We can work on something on business and all of a sudden something in our home life improves and vice versa.
Yeah. I think that's so wise. First of all, I love there that you said, when I improve something in my personal life, my business improves and vice versa. I think that more often than not, driven men will spend more time in the business trying to improve it. I think because they can see the measurable outcomes of their work. There's very specific KPIs in the professional world. There's not always such specific KPIs in the personal world. I think also that a lot of times the validating outside world uh, s- um, elevates the professional accomplishments and not so much the personal accomplishments. But I also think there's this underlying issue that a lot of men deal with, which is they're not sure how to actually rectify the personal challenges. So I wrote a book and called Wounds, and one of the things I talk about early in there is, as a young boy, I was told when I fell down to get up, dust myself off, and try again. Right? Just you cut yourself, spit on it, wipe it off, and keep going. And there's some wisdom in that, right? We don't want to over sissify, boys and culture at all for that matter. But I think that when we don't understand how to deal with particularly the emotional negativity that happens to us or through us, we don't then understand how to communicate it. And so when we don't know how to communicate it, we just choose not to work on it or don't work on it, and so then we just go right back into the business. So do you maybe all that for me is to say, like, do you see a lopsided nature to a lot of the men you engage with when you start, where even if they don't know how to figure out the business, they usually know where to go to figure it out and they're open to communicating that, whereas on the personal side that's not as much so?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more in um, normal investment into their business, right? So that's something that typically they're used to doing. Now, with some of them that have been more open, like that are in other peer groups, like Entrepreneurs Organization or Vistage, or other peer groups, that that they're looking at at a broader aspect of their lives. Not everybody initially starts that way though. And, sometimes we can be so intentional in a certain place in our lives, and so organized in our business and so intentional about improving it that, you know, the family can kind of drift. And I find that in the reverse is that if we really put our attention and our purpose and our clarity at home, like the relationships we have at home, this is my opportunity for my greatest growth and learning. Because if I can continue to not lose my peace and be clear and not give advice and still stay curious and stay open with my teenage son and daughter and my younger two and my wife as we're traveling and journeying about, like that's my opportunity for growth and learning. As I continue to do that, there's no relationship in business that's going to be more challenging than that, because these people I care about deeply and I want the best for them. And me learning to not tell them what to do or how to do it is my practice.
So by that, what I'm hearing you say then is it's more about you learning to obviously be present, to listen, and then maybe to ask good questions to help draw out of them the things that they're thinking and desire.
Yeah,
Is that where you're going with that?
absolutely. Absolutely. It's to help uncover their what's occurring for them. So both in my family and then with my clients, right? So with my clients, it's uncovering what are their deepest desires? Where are they coming from? How are they creating their version of reality? And
It's really good.
that's where it starts, because it's like nothing on the outside is going to change until we address where we're creating from. What are the judgments that we have on ourselves? And often they are, like you said, they come from, it could be an innocent thing from childhood that somebody said that one thing to you and you took it to heart in a not useful way. And then we create the rest of our lives into adulthood in this way if left unchecked.
Yeah. Which happens so stinking much. It's just it's sad to see again how many unresolved issues from the past haunt adults all throughout their life. And again, John Eldridge talks a lot about this in his book, Fathered by God. There's a few other writings that he does, and he talks about these things similarly, but it just seems to have this insane compounding of negative effect on men when we don't address these things. And as much as, I love what you said about the past, present, and the future, and all we really have to live in is the past. I mean, the present, we can't control the past. And as much as we can dream and have vision for the future, we don't ultimately control that. We can influence it, but we don't control it. And so I think there is a danger in living too much in the past where we start to identify with our past, where we have these labels of victim and trauma that can be really, really dangerous if they're not, I don't know if controlled is the right word, but dealt with appropriately and communicated appropriately. But at the same time, I also believe that there is this narrative in society, particularly towards men, that just says, just turn, that was in the past, move on. And again, it can be so dangerous. And so I love that you're communicating that to people. Okay. You touched on something that was one of the coolest things that we discussed in our last conversation, and that was around these family experiences that you are curating and creating. And so you're getting ready to go on this insanely awesome adventure that I wish I was a part of your family for here in a few weeks, probably right around the time when we're going to publish. But would you share a little bit about like what led you to this place of creating these regular family experiences, what they are, why you do them? Because I think this is not every man, not every husband, not every father is going to have the ability to do it in the same way that you do. I mean, yours are amazingly extravagant. And I don't mean like over the top. I mean, I think you've just done such an amazing job of being thorough, and I've only heard a little bit. And I don't want men to hear you share your story and be like, gosh, well, I can't do that. But what I want people to hear is the intentionality around how you got to this place, what you do and how you plan and lay it out, maybe some of the outcomes that you've produced, because that will allow other guys to say, man, I can't do weeks, but I could do a couple of days. I could do a night for that matter. So why don't you share a little bit about that? Because again, I think that was really inspiring to me. And I know it will be for others.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking on that. This has been something that was born out of a lot of the coaching work that I have done for me with my coaches and Jill has done for her, that we realized on this journey, that there's a lot of unwinding of unuseful stories, that we've had in our own lives, and the more that we unwind those unuseful stories and get back to the way God created us in our childlike innocence in nature with play, curiosity, and joy, like that's the place where we would learn from. And we said, well, um, it stemmed from us with schooling. Our kids, our older two at the time, were in fifth and fourth grade. This was 4 years ago, and we realized that it was a they started having school turn from a want to a have to. They were in a classical Christian school, great school. We loved it. They loved it. And then it started getting like it's like they were being forced to learn. They no longer they were losing the spark of the love of learning. And for us, we're like, "Oh my gosh, it's about the same age for us too." And I remember about that age, we loved going on field trips. Like, I remember the field trips. I remember going to Gettysburg. I remember going out east. Like, I remember those things. Those experiences left a great mark. But, and we realized, like, for our children, it's we didn't want them to lose that connection to what they were born with. And so we had a conversation. We created what we call Soul School with our kids. All six of us, Jill and I and our four kids, we created what we call Soul School. And that is for each of us, not just our kids, for each of us to know who we are as children of God, whose we are, and why we are here. What's our purpose, our passion? As we live from those principles for each of us and support each other in those, we bring those to life from the inside out. Part of that is through experiential adventure and bringing history to life by where we go and travel. It could be as simple as taking a walk and just noticing nature. It could be taking a bike ride. This fall is on the other end of that extreme. We're spending 2 months in Greece and Italy. My family's from Greece, and my kids have not been there yet, and we're gonna go bring history to life. We're going to the Parthenon, the Acropolis. We're going to the Ionian Sea. We're gonna bring the Colosseum to life. Like, we're gonna spend time, like, this is all about, and our kids have been involved in planning it and learning about it. They've been learning it. My oldest son, my two boys are learning Greek right now. Uh, my
Wow.
parents are gonna join us, my in-laws are gonna join us for part of the trip too, and it's all about our relationships. We're gonna go visit monasteries in Greece. We're gonna go bring that to life and just, like, really see and immerse ourselves in a different culture. And it doesn't have to be done to that degree. Like, that's not everything that we do. I mean, we go to the Henry Ford Museum here in Detroit. We go learn about, how was the automobile made? Like, there's just different things that we can get our hands on and learn and experience. And we find that we remember the experiences far more when we're interacting with them.
Ooh, that was good. You know, again, I think that you just said this, and I just want to reiterate, it's not necessarily about what you're doing. I think it's far more about how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. That intentionality. I love that you said that, the kids are planning it with you. They're not just recipients of this trip, but they're participants in creating it, which is so cool. It just not only do they learn, but they feel like they're a part of something. And I think that as fathers, think too often we go to one extreme or the other, where it's like we're just going to make them do things, or we're just going to do everything for them. And so I love that balance that you've curated in there. I love the fact that you're showing so much leadership as a father, as a husband, and as a man, which is so missed in society today. But again, without dominating, without dominating that. So I find this to be incredibly fruitful as men are listening today, because there's absolutely one or more areas of every one of our lives in which we can think with that type of intentionality, which really goes back to, you said the who we are and whose we are. And so this is where I'm going to set you up. But I've been wanting to hear this question from somebody like you, because we don't know each other that well. We had a very brief conversation around faith. I know that you don't exclusively work with Christians, which is great. I'm the same way. But I have this question for you, and I don't know if I've asked anybody on my podcast this directly. So I'm giving you some time to hopefully let the spirit marinate. But you are absolutely convicted of who you are in Christ. You are not shy to speaking to that. And yet you are going to have an opportunity, and I'm sure you have had an opportunity to interact with, to engage with, to serve, to support businesses and men in the personal development world who do not believe in Jesus. How do you personally reconcile the fact that without not just a knowledge of, but a faith and pursuit of Christ being ultimately the only way you can live a fulfilling life, and trying to help people that don't know Jesus live that type of life?
Yeah, thank you. And I thank you for that acknowledgement. I fully receive it first, Ryan. That gets me right here. So thank you. Um yeah, so the way that so there's a number of my clients that are uh that were not or are not believers. Uh there are some completely different faiths. And what I find is that what my continual prayer is, Ryan, is that every day, that by the way I live my life, that his light be known, not through me preaching or converting or trying to change somebody. It's by the way that I'm living my life. That's what I seek to live by. And I seek to come from this place and live into it. And I never have arrived, and I don't believe I will arrive. It's a continual journey. What I do find is in working with people in the intimate way that we do, is that when we get down to the core of our identity and where we believe we come from, that when we strip away all the noise that are in our mind of the way of the world and the way that we think the world should work, we come back to our core of who we are and where that came from. People find their way. People find their way when they get quiet enough to listen. That's been my experience.
So good, man. Yeah, I'm sure your heart is the same as mine in this way. I'm taking a little bit of liberty here, but I want everybody to come to know Christ. I want everybody to come to know Christ, not because I believe that way, but because I believe first and foremost that one day they're going to get to experience the real finish line. And man, what a day that will be. But along the way, as you know, we're leading in business, as we're leading at home, you talk about freedom. The Bible says, for freedom Christ has set us free. It's like ultimate. We don't know ultimate freedom apart from Jesus. And so it's just, it gives people this incredible opportunity, challenges too, but an incredible opportunity to live a life in ways that those that don't know Jesus just don't get. And it's not because I have it and you don't. It's just because that's the reality of the situation. And so, Mike, I'm a nobody. I'm a nothing out here in the world. And yet, when we first talked, there was just something about you, which now, for 40 minutes into this conversation or whatever, I've gotten the exact same tone from you. There is just something so special about the way that you live your life. And I love the way that you articulated basically letting your light shine on others, because I can see that so clearly in the way that, I mean, you're not afraid to just say you love Jesus, which I totally appreciate, but you're also not afraid to just live it. And knowing that it's never perfect, knowing that there's going to be areas of improvement always this side of heaven. But this is what the world needs more of. And this is one of the things that I have been, and I've said this on this podcast before, like I am begging of God that he would rise up more strong, influential men in this society that were willing to live the way that you're living your life. And I do think that it requires an aspect of business success. I don't think that's the only way God works, but the reason why you're able to live these family experiences in some way is because you were successful in building business. The way that you're able to interact with some of the men that you have is because of the way that you're building business. And that's what attracts so many men is, man, I need to resolve, I need to grow, I need to succeed. And it's like, yes. And so you're able to enter into that and then live by such a great example. So whoever hears this, like, I want to publicly affirm you for the way that you are living your life. And I pray to God that you not only continue to walk that path, but you continue to grab, drag, influence, inspire whomever it is that will listen to you, because I just feel like you created such a movement and will continue to create such a movement that this society needs more than ever.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. And I acknowledge you for you getting your voice heard by leading this podcast. Not just today, but just getting this out both in the written word, in your books, and then you're not shy about sharing and bringing and cultivating groups of people together, men together, to help realize, hey, look, we're not alone. And when we are in isolation, that's when we go up into our head. But you do help us to drop down into our heart, help us to connect with what's true and what's important, that greatness, the shirt you're wearing. We connect back to our own greatness, which is the greatness of Christ, and that we are all equal. I'm not better than or less than anybody else, no matter where we go. And when we live that way and we help be that example for each other and continue to learn and grow in that way, the world changes.
That is a word that you need to take and do something with. Let that soak into your heart. I encourage you to consider, especially for you men, which is primarily who's listening. I encourage you to consider what Mike shared on presence, what Mike shared on intentionality, definitely in your business. Man, go build the most ridiculously successful businesses, steward them well, but just make sure that your family is getting your primary presence. Like Mike has done such a great job of creating those experiences with his family. And whether you go to Greece for months, or you go hang out in the backyard in lawn chairs for a couple of hours, your family needs your presence now more than ever. So Mike, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for agreeing to be here. Super cool. And I just pray that you get to continue to experience all that God has for you, that you guys have an incredible trip to Greece as a whole family, and that you come back more charged up and fired up than ever, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, this wraps up another episode of Unlocking Greatness. Like, share, subscribe, do whatever it is that you want to do. Just make sure that you continue to pursue the greatness that God has created you for. Talk to you soon.